What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality, where we help you, yes, you become the most devilishly gifted human that you know you are, and that you knew you always could be. Oh, I've got no strings to hold me down, to make me fret, to make me frown.
I had strings, but now I'm free. Strings. There are no strings on me.
Alright, so today we will be talking about shoveling out and refining your character's mind's eye, or worldview, shaping a vision that will entice your audience to continue seeking out fragments of your character's philosophy to either question or align themselves with. We'll start with talking about the importance of establishing a character's worldview. Now, what's the importance of establishing a character's worldview, you ask? Well, of course, it stands to reason that if your character stands for nothing, then it's likely that they'll fall for anything. Just think for a moment. How many times have you tricked a snot-nosed toddler or some brat into thinking you've disappeared?
You want to play peekaboo? Okay. Where's mommy?
Gone. Reduced to atoms.
Peekaboo!
Impossible.
You see, the thing that makes us humans unique is our ability to appeal to reason, question our actions, the actions of others, scale it alongside our own moral compass, and eventually draw our own conclusions. And that methodical process of psychoanalyzing permeates within our characters. It humanizes them, personalizes the dynamic link between the character and the reader, and strengthens our connection to the story. Well, at least some of us. Therefore, if you want your readers or audience to care about your characters, then ensure that your characters have some conviction about them. So now that you know the importance of this, why don't we transition to exploring where your character's justice lies? Yes, there must be a sense of established order, so determine whether or not your character's justice will breed chaos or reinforce that stability. Of course, they may have an astronomically different claim to order. To explore that, we'll delve into the metal mind of Ultron, Tony Stark's long-lost vision of a world wrapped in a cloak of armor. Once the Mind Stone mended with this hunk of metal, making Ultron sentient, we begin to witness the birth of a Darwin-esque perspective bloom into fruition. In a simple sense, Ultron's mission is to ensure that the most efficient life forms, the ones who he presumes will have the ability to recognize that there is not a path to evolution through mindless, senseless wars, and the need for a superhero-esque policing force will persevere. And in a twisted way, this was his way to pose a challenge to humanity. And here's where the beauty of his creed lies, and what any concrete presentation of a worldview calls into question. Does he have a solid vindication to uproot that prevailing order? That's the question that he calls readers and the audience to ask themselves and look inwardly and do some introspection about to draw their own conclusions. We of course call Ultron a villain because his target is the mass extinction of humanity, right? Thanos was right. I mean, who doesn't have a couple of dreams a week about meteors plummeting from the sky and then poof, everything's gone? No, it's just me.
I think a lot about meteors, the purity of them. Boom, the end. Start again.
Year after year after year, we humans just can't seem to get our crap together. A few years ago, it was over toilet paper, and now we're still dropping bombs, blasting blickies, and launching grenades yet again. Always grasping for tendrils of power. Always waltzing towards the throne. Always reaching for strings to spindle the world into the palm of our hand. We as humans are the apex predator in this world. And Ultron was made to hold the mirror to the lion's face, and in a way represented a twisted, more perfected version of humanity. And I believe to see this perspective, you can sort of gauge it in a quote. "You are my meteor, my swift and terrible sword, and the earth will crack with the weight of your failure. Purge me from your computers, turn my own flesh against me. It means nothing. When the dust settles, the only thing living in this world will be metal." So as you can see, holding this hierarchical order's feet to the flames is yet another meticulous way to push forward plot, as well as thread some rows of character development by sort of levying the broods of chaos that will spawn by consequence of their rebellion. Now, there are, of course, different variations of justice attuned to the values, beliefs, and ideologies most synonymous with your character. And the following variations of justice I'm about to share with you are not an exhaustive list, but a microcosm spawned from one of my favorite shows to watch, One Piece. Now, for those who've seen One Piece or read it, there's a lot of goofy characters, a lot of goofy stuff going on. But the thing I love most about the story, which I try to replicate in my own writing and will do a deep dive into later in the future, is the fact that the world does not simply breathe through the eyes and nose of the main protagonist, Luffy, but Law, Whitebeard, Roger, the revolutionaries, Kuma, the Marines, and most specifically for establishing a sense of justice, the topic we're talking about today, the Navy admirals. And most or all of these characters are given a thorough fleshing out to the point where you feel as if you have some sort of deep emotional love or hatred towards them, or maybe the feeling is just ambiguous and unclear. Now we're going to explore the different levels of justice. So what is justice? Well, one may interpret it as a price one may have to pay for deviating from a code of morality that's established within a living order, and a question that I've made sure to pose through the characters of my own novel and encourage you to do so. Can your character's sense of justice be accepted indefinitely or non-indefinitely? That is, there's just as much opportunity for your readers to find tokens of truth in their justice as much as there is to contest it. Keep this in mind while we pull back the curtain of justice. The standard for justice in the eye of One Piece and the scope of the world government's lens is an eye for an eye, or the fact that a punishment should be parallel if not worse than the crime committed. And the world government has committed a series of atrocities in which they justified being enacted in good faith under the flag of justice. One of these events so happened to be the destruction of Ohara, an island of historians that committed the grave act of seeking out information from the Void Century. And it's this inflection point, I believe, that Kuzan Aokiji, one of the admirals, developed his own sense of justice called lazy justice. Now, what is lazy justice? Well, it's the belief that the idea of justice is little worth pursuing, and that if enforced, it should only be done so with little or no effort at all, and fate should decide the outcome. Kuzan chose to protect Nico Robin from Akainu's wrath. He simply gave Robin a chance to escape, embodying his belief in allowing people to choose their own paths rather than strictly enforcing the law. This differs from his constituent Kizaru's sense of unclear justice, or the idea that justice is neither absolute or lazy, but somewhere in between, a blurred, ambiguous sense of justice. And we see this in some of his lackadaisical moments. He exhibits this attitude and also a sort of polarization with his unrelenting enforcement of the law when he does encounter pirates. During the events of Sabati, Kizaru was called in to deal with the Straw Hat Pirates, but instead of immediately attacking or arresting them, he displayed a level of detachment, only engaging when necessary. His seemingly indifferent approach raised questions about the criteria he used to determine when to intervene, highlighting the ambiguity of his sense of justice. And finally, Akainu, who follows the path of absolute justice. What is absolute justice? Essentially, it's a form of justice that states that the law is the law, and there's no arguing against it. It should be enforced accordingly, regardless of morality or ethics. Akainu's interaction with Ace is a stark example. After Ace expressed his desire to protect Luffy, Akainu taunted him by bringing up his past as a pirate. When Ace retaliated, Akainu took the opportunity to strike him down without hesitation, illustrating his belief that any form of leniency or compassion undermines justice. And that's not to mention that at the end of the Battle of Marineford, Kobe, who's a Marine himself, on the same side of him, overwhelmed by the needless deaths and destruction, stepped in front of Akainu and begged for the senseless fighting to stop. He argued that continuing the battle was pointless as Whitebeard had already died and the Marines had effectively won. Kobe was trying to protect both Marines and pirates from further bloodshed, showing his empathy for life regardless of allegiance. And yet, Akainu still persisted, and almost to the point of even killing Kobe. I know it's a microcosm of the holistic picture, but this was simply to provide a few examples of some forms of justice your character could adopt at baseline. And of course, you can mold it, contour it the best way you see fit. In the end, your character's worldview is only as good as the amount of change it affects upon its universe. and the characters who either adopt or rebel against it. Plus, this also gave me an excuse to talk about One Piece. Also, maybe consider introducing a little chaos. And well, you know the funny thing about chaos.
Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fair.
Hey, you wanna know how I got these scars?
You wanna know how I got these scars?
Now, there's no better example of uprooting order in the establishment like Heath Ledger's Joker. Hey, I've got some jokes for you. How do trees get on the internet? They log on. No? That one didn't tickle your timbers? Okay. Why did the turkey join the band? So he could use all his drumsticks. No? That one didn't land either?
You remind me of my father. I hated my father.
Well, yeah, better stop with these jokes. Yes, there's a funny thing about chaos that Heath Ledger's Joker teaches us. And yes, I am an agent of chaos. In essence, the Joker believes that the very existence of order assumes that there is an imbalance of power, which there clearly is, since one ruling power must be in play to enforce laws, rules, and postulates that would keep the said governed in order. By contrast, chaos allows humanity to strip off their mask of false virtue and embrace the inner animal and demon inside. And the fact that disconformity can be practiced by any individual regardless of class or status. Now, what an interesting way to flip justice on its head. It's honestly a method that I've currently been implementing in my own storytelling and writing. I consider taking whatever course of morality and ethics that my character represents. Perhaps maybe they're working to rebel against the antagonist, and I flip that on its head, flip the script. As you all know, a concrete character is thought to be dynamic in nature, and being so should be made to doubt, question, and at times, even if just for a brief moment in time, abandon their ideals. This presents the opportunity to build character through psychoanalytic and internal conflict in which they will have to juggle their own constructed prefecture of the world and decide whether or not to free themselves by flinging the pins away or to just simply endure. We of course see this with Batman, as the Joker is consistently forcing his hand, trying any and every attempt to possibly corrupt him, just like he was able to do with Harvey, even to the point of killing Rachel and setting a trial for humanity in which they were made to decide which lives were worth more than the others, the inmates on the boats or the civilized people drifting on the other one.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
So consider peeling off your character's mask and challenging their sense of order, and if you want to add some flavor, have them delve into a little bit of the oppositions and witness yourself plotting a story that yields an invaluable amount of growth for your character. Introduce a little anarchy, upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. Moving onward to another method in which you can help enrich your character's worldview. Perhaps have your character chase a lie. Eren Yeager is one of my favorite fictional characters up until chapter 139. Thank you, Eren, for becoming a homicidal maniac for our sake. Not for at least 10 years. 10 years at least. Oh, someone gunned me down. Anywho, what the creator of Attack on Titan does with Eren's character is magnificent. His initial view of the Titans, who he viewed as monsters responsible for destroying his home of parodies and restricting and condemning him to his friends to a life of slavery in a state of constant fear, knowing they could be devoured at any moment, creates a hate-filled soldier with bloodthirst. But unbeknownst to him and the reader, up until when he finds out that he can transform into one of those devils, until he traverses the steps into that basement and uncovers the identity of the Titans who punched the hole in the wall of parodies and stripped him of everything he loved, we find the bliss of ignorance and blind rage. It's needless to say that when he uncovered the truth about the walls of parodies, and that the same blood of the Titans ran through his own veins, his wrath is then set out to the rest of the world, the place he once sought to escape to in order to attain freedom he desired the most. And so he became a devil that his people needed and rumbled through the world with a storm of his wrath in hopes of at least freeing his people and friends from the burden of being slaves to the rest of the world. Though this was just a simple snapshot of Aaron's sort of journey during Attack on Titan, I highly suggest you watch it if you haven't, to get a more concrete idea of who he is as a character and witness his unique shift from angel to devil. Having your character chase a lie adds in that oomph of building tension toward a plot twist. Moreover, it creates an opportunity for character growth by posing the obstacle of accommodation. So consider giving your character a lie to chase. So go forth and create characters that will uproot order, topple the establishment, put a smile on our face.
Let's put a smile on that face.
Send a couple of meteors crumbling our way and help us question where our justice lies. I will leave a link to my socials in the description below. And if you took anything from this video, I want you to take a moment to hit that subscribe button below and like the video. It pushes these videos out so that others can take the key tokens that you've gained and push them forward. So do your fellow comrades a favor. And with that, remember, if ever you're lost in the forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world.